Hey there, Dr. Darya Ghafourpour here. Welcome back to another edition of Friday Night Live. And today I'm finding it really important to focus on protecting your mindset, especially when it's a positive mindset. And I'm going to tell you why. Recently it's been coming up about, the influence that others can have on us. Others in our immediate surroundings, others in the media, those who are extended friends, extended family, newspaper articles, magazines that you'll have a look at, and everything gives us input. There's constant input, it seems, in today's world with the internet and social media. And when you have a perspective that's worth holding on to, you need to protect it. And all too often, others have their own agenda, which is to instill their perspective, which is often negative. And it's easy to get swept up into the doldrums and to feel, not so positive about things, like the world isn't great and all these disasters are happening and there's a lot to worry about. And that's true, especially if it is in your immediate world. There's no denying that if you're someone whose house burned down in the fires in the last week, a couple of weeks, or if you know someone who did, that's devastating. Your businesses, that's devastating. So there's no doubt about that. And yet you'll find that there are people who have gone through this turmoil, and yet they still find the silver linings in life. And that takes practice to do. So it's not to say that they don't go through their feelings of hardship, and it's not to say that we all don't have some hardship that we might be experiencing. Hi, Bernadette, thank you. But we need to be guarded about what our own outlook is, because it's very easy to be influenced out of the perspective that we have by others. And I'll give you an example. Okay, all these examples are swirling in my mind, but I'm thinking of, okay, I brought up the fires, and what happens when there's an imminent danger that's happening. You want to be on the lookout. You want to be alerted if your safety is at stake. Do you need to be prepared to leave? Great message. Thank you. You're welcome, T. Do you need to be prepared to leave? Is there a fire that could spark up in your neighborhood, and are you ready? Do you have your go bag? So that's common sense, especially if you're in an area that is close by, a fire that's already going on and high winds and so forth. And then there's getting really, really sucked into that being the only possibility, the only potential. And it's easy to start to feel that way. Shireen, hi, Dr. Shireen. Thank you for joining me. Yeah, it's easy to feel that way when you turn on the internet and you see all the homes that have been burned down, the lives that, so unfortunately have been lost, and all the looting that's going on, all these horrible, horrible things. And you have to know when it's time to turn those alerts off and to screen out all that bad stuff. There's a certain amount of sensationalism that happens. It got to the point where first I was seeing heartwarming stories about the fires on the internet. These people who helped one another out, or people who were just so giving in their lives, and then there's like a memorial about them because unfortunately they had lost their life. But then they started turning into all this sensationalism about, almost like in a gossipy way. And I really started noticing a trend once it started getting out of, okay, we're no longer in the imminent, like you might also be affected if you're in a nearby town. So let's keep you roped in. And again, I'm not minimizing anything that the people who've gone through situations like this experience. I'm just noticing that there's a different way that we can approach hearing news and processing our own thoughts and our own emotions. So what I did was I thought, oh boy, I live in a town that's relatively near the fires, so I should get these alerts that people are telling me that their cell phones are, their mobile phones, they get all these alerts. And I found something called it's called the Novato patch. So I live, and I thought, well, I'll do that. So I started getting like 2 emails a day, and So I'm going to unsubscribe because it's kind of horrific. And everything is about all these awful things and awful crimes that are going on in relation to, because they know that I want to look up, I want to be on alert about fires. And they're not telling so many stories about, look at all the donations that are coming in. Look at people who are opening up their homes to those who are in need. Look at all these shelters that are popping up and all the goodwill that's around. They're not talking about that. They're talking about the bad stuff, how someone who was at a shelter and this woman robbed all these others. And it's like, yes, that undoubtedly happens. And if I pay too close attention to those things, then I could start thinking that people are inherently bad. Why should I trust somebody who might open up their home to me? Why might I trust somebody who might offer a helping hand? Because they're just going to steal from me. So you get what I'm saying? That's one example. And I know that there are there's those neighborhood sites, and I have been tempted to join that sort of thing, and I just decided not to, because what I hear people sharing about is all the bad stuff that's going on, because that's what gets reported. So what can you do about it? How can you protect your mindset? So first, I think it takes awareness. So if you're feeling well, and I had this conversation with one of my patients this morning, it was a great conversation. We both realized we're kind of on the same page. If you're feeling good, and then someone starts talking about something that is really upsetting to you, or upsetting to them. Let's say it's very upsetting to them, and you're a friend or you're compassionate and you want them to know that they're not alone, or you want to listen, you want to be kind. There has to be a point of stopping the conversation, because it can spiral downwards. It can really take you down and you feel heavy and bad. So what gain is there when you feel bad like that? Does it make are you a better friend because you've gone down a rabbit hole and you're letting yourself sink down just to be, supportive of your friend? I would argue not. I would argue that you can listen with a sympathetic ear, and you can also draw a boundary and decide to either change the conversation yourself or find some way of excusing yourself. And you can do it in a polite way, where you're verbally telling or showing your friend somehow that you're being sympathetic and you're concerned, and you're glad you had that time to be able to visit, and it's time for you to do something different now, so you can excuse yourself. And then you probably need to do some grounding. One way of doing that is, first of all, literally shaking away, just shaking it off. When they say shake it off, there's actually a good merit to that, because you're dispersing that energy that's feeling heavy inside of your body. I know that Qigong teaches that sort of thing, and in fact, I remember some Qigong exercises where you would stand up and then just literally bounce in your feet, just bounce, and that's that's like a really good thing to do to start your day, to help ground yourself and become more present. So, this goes out, back to ancient Chinese medicine and energy work. So you can do that, and then you can start reminding yourself of what you are grateful for and what there is to appreciate. And I found myself doing that this week, where I was speaking with other dentists, and there was that element of somewhat of despair, and there's a lot of competition and worry. There's reason to be worried. There's reason, for all these complexities with the way the insurance industry works. And there was a lot of fear that I found happening in these conversations. And I watched myself, and I started to feel, just sink a little bit. And I started to wonder, does this apply to me? And I started to feel lower and tired. And then I just realized, okay, it's time for me to protect myself and to shift gears now, and what's one way of removing yourself? And what I'll do too is I'll ask myself, is it time to eat? Literally, like, is it time to have a snack, or is it time to have a meal? Because when we can re-energize ourselves, re-nourish ourselves, that can be a real natural and easy way to help us lift our spirits. And then we start being able to think a little bit more clearly and realize, this doesn't apply to me. Why am I pondering these thoughts so much? See? So that was an example. And I did. I shifted gears. I went into my next mode for that evening, and got something to eat. and then just started appreciating where I was and what I've got going on. So I've got a whole lot of more examples and tips to share. Maybe I'll do like a to be continued in another Friday video. I'm thinking of ways of that concept of like, not in my world. I have that as a mantra that goes on for me, not in my world. And so I'll expand on that later on at another time. So I want to thank you for joining me, and I hope that I was able to touch your life in some way that is helpful and meaningful and lifts your spirits, because I think that we all need our spirits lifted. And after all, we create our reality. So when we can protect ourselves from feeling down and depressed, and we can allow ourselves to feel, a positive and enlightened and energetic way, we affect our reality. So that's another thought. Let's say you hear all this bad news going on, and you were just feeling great. Has anything changed in your world? Like, was it useful for you to hear all that bad news and feel bad about it? Was there anything that you could do to help the scenario? Oftentimes the answer is no. And so what purpose has it? What's the purpose of that? So ask yourself that too. Is there a reason why I'm sitting in this negative conversation or listening in to a negative conversation? And is there something that I can do to turn things around so I can uplift myself and then take on a more positive perspective? So I encourage you to find ways of doing that, and I'd love it if you'd share your thoughts with me here. And appreciation can drive out fear, Donna says. I've definitely experienced that. Look, I can say did it like? I can definitely agree with that. Appreciation does drive out fear, and sometimes fear has, sometimes there is a point to it. It might help you realize all the good stuff that's going on in your life. So if it pulls you away enough for you to realize, oh wow, I have it really good, then maybe it served its purpose, because then you can really live in that moment and be super happy about the things that are going well in your life. So I'm happy for the things that are going well in your life, and I think it's great that you're joining me here. Share this video with anyone that you think can benefit from this message, and I'd love it if you'd invite your friends to like my Facebook page as well, and to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Oh, let's end with some more sparkles. Here we go. Hold on just a second. Sparkles? Okay. Swirlies. How's that? Oh, happy Diwali. I forgot to say. And there's some Nemos. All right. Have a great weekend. Bye. Oh, look, I can send little bubbles here too. Now, how do I turn on? Okay, bye.